I did not eat all the M&Ms from the trail mix. Sandboxes for everybody.
I get to work on the trailer today. Part 8. I'm feeling good because the trailer now has 4 new walls, and today I'm going to work on repairing the holey floor and saggy ceiling. The first thing we'll do is kick these braces once and for all. How you feeling? Any withdrawal symptoms yet? Good, good. It feels good to be clean, doesn't it? The first thing I want to work on today is this floor. I removed a portion of it earlier, and even though I have the makings of a really rockin' Barney Rubble special, I'm still going to remove what remains of this rotting subfloor and install all new 1/2-inch plywood. This old plywood is held in place by a prodigious amount of ring shank nails, and countersunk rusty carriage bolts. I soaked these in some oil, and amazingly, the nut is coming loose. I need to pull off these fenders too. I think I have all the bolts and nails removed from the subfloor, and there were a lot of nails, especially here along this blocking. They were every 1.5 to 2 inches. Some old boy back in 1973 must have had a piece of plywood escape on him at one time. But anyway, let's see if we can remove this panel. How's that for showing the floor of the door? Ha! The wiring on this trailer is a mess. I really don't know where most of the wires go, and there are places like back here where I inadvertently cut a bundle of wires with the Sawzall when I was doing my demolition. But to help my chances in reassembling a working electrical system, I'm going to take a picture of this bundle of wires which comes through the floor before I cut them to allow removal of this last piece of plywood. This way I'll at least have some idea of how these wires are supposed to be connected. I'll get the wires out of this little grommet. There. Now there's plenty of room for me to remove that plywood. My replacement subfloor is going to be 15/32 thickness AC exterior grade plywood. I was struck with a little bit of sticker shock when I bought this. This is over $30 a sheet. I'm glad I'm not building a gymnasium. I'll make these cutouts for the fenders. I complain about the price of this plywood, but it is made in USA, which is worth something. Unlike this wall paneling that I've been using, which is made in China and is produced by a disgustingly named company called Patriot Timber. I kind of worry. China puts lead in children's toys. What do they put in their plywood? To attach the plywood to the frame, I'm using these same 2-inch screws that I bought to put the walls together. They're overkill for this application. 1.5-inch screws would be fine, but the last time I went to the lumber yard, my bill was over $200, and I wasn't ready to spend another 25 bucks on a box of screws. Since I know the piece of plywood is square, it's handy for straightening up the walls. I'm leaving a very small gap around the perimeter of the plywood to allow for expansion. That's all she wrote. Without these carriage bolts that secure the wood structure to the metal frame, these floor joists can experience movement. So just to keep everything in place temporarily, I'm going to reinstall the bolts through the bottom of the trailer. Willy-nilly must have been a pretty goofy guy. It seems that someone didn't believe in trailer brakes. I'm not sure if there will be enough room to install these fenders later, so they're going in now. Okay, the plywood is now secured to the floor framing. Now I just need to attach the floor assembly to the metal frame of the trailer. To attach the wooden box to the metal chassis, first I'll take out these bolts that I was using for alignment, and then double check my measurements to ensure that the little house is centered on the frame. Then, when I'm sure everything's just where I want it to be, I can drill up through the floor. Now I can drop the bolt in from above, tighten it up, and repeat. To ensure a smooth subfloor surface, I need to tighten down these bolts enough that their heads are level with the plywood. Now that these bolts are all installed, our modest mobile residence is now attached securely to the metal frame. Now it's time to move on up and concentrate on the ceiling. It looks like these panels are held in place with some small screw nails, so I'll take those out. I've always been a fan of the rotten, tattered look. Caution, metal spikes may descend at any time. Hey, that was easy enough. With those panels removed, now I can get a good look at the roof framing. What I need to do here is one by one remove each of these ceiling supports and trim just a little bit off the end of each one. This is because my new walls are just a little bit thicker than the original trailer walls, and consequently the interior of the structure is just a little bit narrower. The effects of the wrongly sized ceiling supports can be seen here at the rear of the trailer, but once I install the correct length boards, I'll be able to close up this gap between these two walls. Okay, my magic number is 89 5/8. I've got the ceiling support board cut. Jennifer's up to the task of holding it in place while I go around to the outside and secure it with a couple of screws. Right there?
Yeah.
Okay, that looks good. My stick is in place, and this corner looks really nice as well. Oh, lay me down, tuck me in a fiberglass blanket. Lay me down, tuck me in. I adore the way you make me feel. I'm mainly reinstalling this fiberglass insulation because I believe it gives a really nice cushion between the framing and the aluminum roof.
Oh, that just looks lovely.
So now we'll just move it on down the line and work on this board. Well, it's kind of a shame, but this board I just took out needs to be replaced. It's split here at the end for two reasons. One, because there's a knot right here where somebody tried to put a screw, and also it's pretty weak in this area where the other screw was, because of this rail that holds the ceiling panels in place. I just got done making a couple of new cross members for the ceiling. These are regular 2x4 studs that I ripped down. They're ready to be installed. This next board is going to have an aluminum rail attached to it, and the aluminum rail is going to support the ceiling panel. The ceiling panel is going to span from this beam over to this ceiling support, so the measurement between these two boards is important. And since this piece is part of the framing for the roof vent, and its position is determined by the placement of the exterior aluminum skin, I need to make sure that the roof of the trailer is in the right spot before I install this next beam. And it does need a little bit of adjustment. On the front of the trailer, the aluminum siding hangs down about an inch, and here in the back, it's hiked up the same amount. So what I need to do is slightly shift backwards the scalp of the Shasta. So let's see if it wants to be cooperative. Okay, that really didn't look like much, but let's have a look at our reference spot. Here at the front, it looks like I'm still hanging down about 1/4 of an inch. And the back side actually looks like it's hanging down as well. Maybe about 1/8 of an inch, or a little bit less. So I'll just give this one last little Shasta shimmy to move it back just a tad. So with that last adjustment, my overhang is just a little bit less up front and just a skosh heavier in back. So I'll call that good enough. Okay, so now I can install this ceiling support, but first I need to secure this aluminum rail to the board. I feel like I'm really getting ahead in this project because I'm reusing some of these 41-year-old screw nails. Small victory right there. Those are nice, just like the day they were cast. I have 1, 2, 3, 4 rafters in place, and I'm ready to move on to these 2 ceiling supports. Now these 2 boards are special because they're part of the framing for this roof vent, which means they're a pain to remove. They have a lot of screws going down into them, and there's also a big thick rubber seal here on the outside. And that's nothing that I want to contend with. Lucky for me, both boards are still in good shape, so they don't need to be replaced, but I do need to trim about 1/4 of an inch off of each one so that they fit the new width of the trailer. How do I trim these boards without removing them? I can't fit a skill saw in there. I can't fit a handsaw up in there. It's time to break out the heavy artillery. This is a Rockwell Sonic oscillating cutter, and this should be able to slip right up here next to the wall because it's a flush cut tool and trim off just what I need. I've got this board unfastened from the wall so I don't cut through any screws, and let's give this tool a try. This is not a toy. It oscillates at 20,000 Aussies a minute. And you really should wear safety glasses with this. I won't because I already wore my safety glasses once today and I don't want to overdose. And we'll switch on over to the other side. These 2 boards are cut to length and reattached to the wall, which means that all of the ceiling supports from the rear of the trailer up to this point are ready to go, which means the last thing I need to concentrate on to finish the roof framing is this area right here. The construction of this rafter and refrigerator vent is a total disgrace. I think it was engineered by Dr. Seuss. The purpose of this ceiling support is to transfer the weight of the roof and ceiling of the trailer over to the sidewalls. When a cut is made in the rafter, this load carrying capability is completely diminished, and rather than the rafter carrying the load of the roof and ceiling, the roof and ceiling are carrying the weight of the rafter and refrigerator vent. Anyone who knows anything about framing will tell you this is not best practices. Rather, it's laughable. And in addition to crummy manufacturing techniques, we can also find in this same area a healthy dose of subpar maintenance. This refrigerator vent was replaced at one time, but instead of removing all of this old metal flashing and installing a new vent of the correct size, somebody decided it would be easier to just place an oversized vent on top of the remains of the old one. This means that when water enters the trailer, instead of just trickling down into the pan of the refrigerator to eventually evaporate, it will find its way behind this metal flashing to stagnate and eventually cause all sorts of mold, fungus, rot, and heartache, as seen here. So to fix this cockamamie mess, the first thing I need to do is remove this pathetic excuse for a rafter. And with that out of the way, now I can go up top and start removing the vent. Under this contemporary vent, I've found the remains of the original vent. I'm going to remove it because the screws that attach this vent to the trailer go into this framing that I need to replace. I'm also going to remove this because with the new vent installed over the top of it, there's quite a bit of space here between the new vent and the roof of the trailer, and I want this gap to be as tight as possible. I need to be very careful where I set my tools on this roof because it's very delicate. In fact, I think if a hummingbird sneezed on it, it would probably leave a dent. Okay, now that all of that fine workmanship is out of the way, I can replace it with something a little bit less embarrassing. First thing I'll do is take this piece of wood. It's a scrap from when I was ripping down the rafters. It's 1.5 inches wide and about 1 inch thick. And put it here in front of the vent. I've got this cross member secured. Next I'll just slip this piece of pine between it and the existing rafter. This board is now secure. It's got screws coming through from the inside and outside of the trailer. I've respected the dimensions of the vent in determining the placement of this next board. So now I'll go like this and like this. And like this, and just like this right here. And that'll do it as far as tidying up this particular mess. I'm proud of my work because I know that my refrigerator vent is now satisfactorily framed. I'm sure I'll be able to rest just a little bit easier. And speaking of rest, I think this is a great time to take a break in production. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.